Thank you, Chair Sanders. I too thank the teachers. I still remember the names of all my elementary school teachers. And particularly one who, they all, I think, believed in a guy with a lot of ADD, a young child, who couldn't focus, who didn't read during the day. And so one of them kept me afterwards and drove me home. Could you imagine that? She would drive me home after everybody had left because my ADD would not allow me to kind of focus. So I just applaud all the teachers. You are formative in a child's experience. But as we begin to speak about the current state of K through 12 education, we have to recognize the world as it is. 2/3 of U.S. public school students don't read proficiently in 4th grade. 40% are essentially non-readers. Almost 2/3 of 4th graders, 3/4 of 8th graders are below proficient in math. Less than half of public school parents, less than half, say their child is definitely prepared academically for the next year. A related issue is the rising absenteeism. 28% of students miss nearly 4 weeks of the school year. Now, intuitively, but also borne out by research, students who miss more than 4 weeks have difficulty learning to read by 3rd grade. Think about that. These are not middle schoolers or high schoolers skipping out when their parents not watching. These are children less than their 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and they're missing 4 weeks of school or more. And so if you don't learn to read by 3rd grade, you don't read to learn after that. How did we get here? Well, in many places, primary and secondary education is broken. Schools have lost sight of their core mission of educating children. Some education leaders prioritize social agendas and progressive ideology over academic progress. This negatively impacts children's success. It leaves them ill-prepared to enter a competitive workforce. Now, parents, studies show, are the most important indicators and educators in their children's life. I think I read once that the mother is the most determinative of a child's future in academic success, which, you know, kind of illustrates it's the hand that rocks the cradle that rules the world. But unfortunately, many parents feel as if they've been forced to be bystanders or even silenced by fear of retaliation from school leaders. In 2023, 72% of parents considered moving their children to a new school, a 35% increase from 2022. Now, I have to point out that it's been more than a year and a half into this Congress, and we're just now having our first hearing on K through 12 education. We are the committee with jurisdiction over federal K through 12 funding, and we have a responsibility to examine this broken system. Our kids will spend roughly 15,000 hours in school between kindergarten and 12th grade. If they are not learning, what are they doing? I'm not sure throwing more money at the problem is the solution. The committee needs to determine root causes concerning the state of public education and how to fix it. Now, one thing that cannot be ignored, we're spending more money per child on education than ever before in our nation's history. Somebody's got a pretty good phone over there, but they need to turn it off. So if you look here, here's spending, here's inflation. So spending has greatly exceeded inflation. But even beginning before the pandemic, we saw a decrease in math scores and a decrease in reading scores. The reading is 4th grade, the math is 8th grade. Now, in 2021, Democrats, through a partisan bill, gave $121 billion in one-time COVID spending with little accountability or requirements for how the money would be used. And it begs the question, where was it spent? Some school districts added new faculty positions like assistant principals that have limited impact upon classroom learning. There are now more staff collecting paychecks at schools than ever before, and yet we see grades falling. Now let's be clear, teachers are important. For a child to learn, they must have a teacher focused on teaching. But there's evidence, anecdotal, teachers are overwhelmed by policies that prevent them from truly managing classrooms and in some cases ensuring the safety of their students. We'll hear more about this from one of our witnesses today. Now, the Democrat solution to this challenge has been to create a federal minimum salary for teachers. Improving teacher pay is important. In fact, out of 11 states that passed laws this year increasing take-home pay for teachers, 10 have Republican-led legislatures, including Louisiana. But the federal government dictating how states spend their money does not address the root cause of why teachers are struggling to teach in the classroom. More mandates and funding cannot be the only answer we come up with. We must examine broken policies that got us here and find solutions to improve. This should not be the only hearing Congress has examining education. We need to understand shortcomings in K through 12 and commit to resolving them so kids can read and become productive citizens. With 11 legislative weeks left, it seems we're not going to get to this, but the longer we wait, the more students suffer. We need to be looking at different issues about, for example, how to address the learning loss and severe mental health issues among adolescents as a result of COVID school closures. We need to implement better strategies like the science of reading to address falling literacy rates so children can read properly and do not fall behind. We need to begin to screen for dyslexia, a condition which affects 20% of children, but with undiagnosed condemns the child to underperformance. Now, we need to address how schools, the negative impact of TikTok and social media on students, and if phones should be in the classroom, and what are the costs of making school optional during the pandemic. What were those costs, as was done by many school districts across the nation? By the way, the committee also hasn't had a hearing to address our broken higher education system. We should be discussing the botched rollout of the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, that delayed millions of students and families from accessing crucial financial aid information. Without this information, students don't know if and how they can afford college and may just decide not to attend. We need to address the rising cost of college that is crushing students and families, forcing them to take on more loans, which may or may not return on their investment. And we need to hold universities and the Biden administration accountable for the rising rate of anti-Semitism on campuses, which have culminated in violence and chaos. With the limited time left we have this Congress, I urge the chair to prioritize how we can help our students and keep them from falling behind. Our children, our country's future is at stake. With that, I yield.
We will